Hello, my name's Rick Sheffer. My family has lived in Emlenton for over 100 years, and even though I have lived in Michigan for the past 37 years, I still consider Emlenton my home. This presentation is a follow-up to a YouTube video I did this past summer on ideas for revitalization of Emlenton's historic downtown. Since then, I was asked by the Emlenton Downtown Business Association to amplify my ideas on this subject. This video presentation is a response to this request. I hope the ideas presented here are interesting and somewhat helpful to the residents of the town in considering options. My presentation tonight will cover three topics I believe relate to community economic development for Emlenton. They are economic challenges for the town, Emlenton's community and economic assets, and how to leverage community assets for economic development. Under economic challenges, I would like to briefly discuss three that I believe may present the most challenge to Emlenton's community development efforts. These are Interstate 80 and the new Emlenton Bridge, the current downtown business district itself, and the availability of financial resources. The first item I refer to as Interstate 80 and the Emlenton Bridge routing. As I mentioned in my video, in days before Interstate 80 was built, all traffic heading north via Route 38 came down the Emlenton Hill, executed an S-turn on the then existing Emlenton Bridge, and at the end of the bridge executed a wide U-turn onto Main Street. In reverse, heading south on Route 38, you drove through the entire town before reversing the twists and turns up the river hill. Either way, every business on Main Street was exposed to this potential customer traffic flow. However, today, not only does the I-80 traffic bypass the town, but Route 38 traffic misses the bulk of the business district due to the location of the new Emlenton Bridge in the center of town. People traveling through town must now be redirected off their normal Route 38 path in order to pass through the main business district. Now, in order to bring new people into the downtown shopping district, you must direct them and give them a reason to visit the Emlenton Business District. This is a hindrance to economic activity. An idea, a possible solution to this might be to change Main Street into a one-way street with angled parking. Changing Main Street to a one-way street with angled parking would accomplish several things. First, in Emlenton, one-way traffic could be routed from the bridge west on Main Street, doubling back on River Avenue. By making the parking on an angle, much more street parking can be achieved. Overflow parking could be directed to the school playground. But this alone would not solve the problem. An additional element would need to be added, and that would be directional signage. By adding signage at the corner of Kerr Avenue and Main Street, you could direct people into the historic downtown business district. In fact, similar signs could be placed on the south side of the river as well, as off both I-80 exits. This signage could offer travelers a reason to drive through the downtown district. And I'm not sure if all the ramifications to the town this change would make, but it is something to think about. The second issue to future economic development relates to the downtown business district itself. Unlike many small towns, Emlenton's business district still has most of its original buildings in place, and this is a tremendous asset. However, some of the storefronts have need of some repairs and restorations. In some cases, just a coat of paint is all that's needed, but on the whole, most buildings are in remarkably good shape. And I will discuss this topic in more detail in a moment. Finally, the third and most problematic issue facing all communities is the limit of financial resources to do what towns would like to do. In reality, there isn't a community in America today that couldn't use more financial resources to do what they want to do to their community. And small town America has been particularly hard hit by this reality. This is a reality that must be overcome over the long run. And here are a few strategies a town I am familiar with, Dowagiac, Michigan, has done to finance their community improvements. First, they formed a downtown development authority with leadership and power. They raised economic development seed money for building restoration. They researched and applied for state and federal community development funds. They researched and applied for private foundation money. They set up a TIFA, a Tax Incremental Finance Authority. They executed a community development fund drive. Philanthropic individuals donated money for special projects. These are legacy donations that live long after the individual. And they established a community foundation where people could leave money to the town in their wills. Again, these are legacy donations. We can talk more about this later if you like. Summarizing, the three economic challenges that I have focused on are 1. Interstate 80 and the new Emlenton Bridge. 2. The current downtown business district itself. And 3. The availability of financial resources. Next, I would like to spend some time highlighting what I consider the community's assets and opportunities that can be exploited. These are existing businesses and business and building owners, the Emlenton's historic architectural downtown business district, other existing community assets I'll discuss, the Allegheny River as an asset, the Allegheny Mountains and hills and streams, the Samuel Justus bicycle and hiking trail, Interstate 80, even though it's a liability, it's also an asset, other regional attractions that can be capitalized upon, and lastly, encouraging entrepreneurial business startups. So let's start with item 1. The existing businesses, their owners, and the building owners. The best part of the downtown district is the fact that most of these commercial spaces have current businesses operated by local entrepreneurs, and in many cases, the buildings themselves are owned by the entrepreneurs. It will be these business people who will determine the future of the town's downtown district, and the future begins with a vision of the future for the town. The collective vision might be to remain a quiet residential town, or it might be to become a more viable economic entity, or somewhere in between. In addition, the local business people are the human resources that will provide the leadership needed to evolve a vision and move the town towards fulfilling it. In my experience, this leadership comes first and foremost from the business community and supported by the local governing body. With the right plans, the local Farmers National Bank should be an invaluable resource for assistance in funding for renovation efforts, and the Progress News to provide renovation effort information to keep the community informed of plans and activities. One thing I am pretty darn sure of, and that is the leadership for such an endeavor is in this room tonight. The second asset I have documented is Emlenton's downtown business district itself. Unlike many small towns, the buildings in the downtown district have what I call good bones. What I mean by that is the structures are intact and interesting as 19th and 20th century three-story commercial and residential architecture. The commercial district is not limited to Main Street, but curves down to River Avenue as well. There are very few missing teeth in the business district, as vacant lots have been referred to in community development terms. There are types of enhancements other communities have made to their downtown district that could be considered in Emlenton. The first thing communities have done is to restore the architectural character of the existing buildings. That may mean spray washing the exteriors, to repairing facades, and painting them using an historical color palette to taking off facades that were added later and restoring the face of the building to its original use. The town of Dowagiac, Michigan had a local painter with a very sensitive color palette and a feel for older architecture, and they worked with him as part of the community development effort. He provided consulting advice to the building owners. Likewise, they teamed up with an architect to help local businesses define renovation needs and costs. And it all started with the renovation of one building at a time. But over a period of years, virtually all the buildings in their downtown have been restored. The Farmers Bank building is architecturally very clean and in very good shape. And the Hickman building is in fantastic condition. The old H&E Hardware building has been restored beautifully. Look how sensitive and true to the original architecture the paint scheme has been executed. This is a great example of excellence in building facade restoration. Equally so is the Stitches building. Very sensitive restoration, true to the original building architecture. Also the Progress News building. I believe this used to be the People's Gas building, and it's in excellent condition. The former Reformed church looks very noble and would make a great destination restaurant or brew pub that could draw people from far and wide. This building, however, may need more work on its integrity of the structure than exterior restorations, but I am not sure of that. The newer Farmers Bank building on Main Street blends in fine with the existing downtown architecture. Obviously, careful thought was put into the design of this structure. Some of the buildings in the downtown district, however, have had facades added that change the look and character of the original building design. The thought at the time was to make the older town building look more modern. Dowagiac, Michigan was like that. Most of the buildings had a metal facade covering their fronts, but today they have all been removed and the original restoration done. Let's take a look at several of the buildings that have this same potential. With minimal effort, these storefronts could be changed back to their original look and character of the original building design without major renovation effort. But of course, this would only be done if the building owner wished it to be done. Converting non-historically accurate facades back to their original character requires looking behind the facade to see what of the original architecture is still there. Notice how well the building looks above the streetscape. Old pictures of the building before the newer facade was added are invaluable to restoration efforts. And this is where working with a local painter, an architect, or contractor come in. They can provide design and paint suggestions and provide cost estimates for executing the restoration. Here, very minor changes would be needed to restore it to the original design. The left half of the building provide clear direction as to how the right side should look. And notice the pizza and sub and the ice cream paint signage coming through the facade. In some cases, a coat of paint is all that would be needed to refresh a building's look and feel to its original use. In this case, the Donaldson Motors Company building. Here's an example of how a building's appearance was transformed by bringing back its exterior facade to its original look. This was my building in the downtown district of South Bend, Indiana. This is how the facade looked before restoration. A coat of cement had been applied to the original brick sometime in the past when the thinking was a more modern look was better. Here's the building after the cement facade was removed. As you can see on the right side of the building, they were still adding new windows to the structure when this picture was taken. This building had been abandoned for over 10 years when I bought it. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the before and after restoration. Notice the change in the brick exterior, window sills, and entranceways. Not only can it be exciting bringing back the facade to its original look, but also what can be done on the inside of the building. Here's a picture of my advertising agency staff on the first floor of the building. When I bought the building, the columns were in perfect condition, but covered up with pegboard so you could not see them, and the corbelled ceiling was covered with a drop ceiling. Today, this building houses the best high-end restaurant in South Bend. The first two floors are high-end dining, and the third floor is a nightclub. The Gothic columns shown in the previous picture are the highlight of the dining room architecture. In some cases, creative ideas have been done to enhance historically unique structures. One idea in this area might be the town's old theater building, where a movie marquee could be added to give the building the look and feel it once had, even though it no longer serves as a theater. Spray washing the brick would bring back luster to the surface. Here's a quick example of how a marquee could be added back to the building, even though the current use of the building would remain the same. And this is just a thought for consideration. Another example might be the restoration of the former Emlenton Tire Shop and Quaker State gas station on Main Street. This gas station was not in use when a car collector restored it to its original look and then put some of his antique vehicles in the building. Of course, I recognize that this building is currently very much in use, so one must be realistic when considering this type of creativity. In summary, many communities are bringing back the look and feel of the original architecture and are giving people an aesthetic reason to return to the downtown district. In turn, this renovation has helped fuel a resurgence of retail activity and renewed community prosperity. Another enhancement to community's downtown business district is the addition of trees and plantings along the streets. Strategically locating the right kinds of trees along the street brings life to a historic downtown district. Another tactic to add character to a downtown business district is to add old-time streetlights along the main street. In Emlenton's case, they might be added along Water Street too. The streetlights add character to any streetscape. In downtown Dowagiac, Michigan, pavement bricks were added to accent sidewalks and special areas. In this case, street bricks, plantings, and a gazebo was added in order to creatively fill a vacant lot. The gazebo was actually donated by a local business in the town, and paving bricks with donors' names were sold to individuals as a way to raise money for the paving. When finances permit, towns have buried electrical and telephone wires underground to add to the attractiveness of the district. In Dowagiac, Michigan, the village agreed to replace all the sidewalks and bury the electrical telephone wires underground as part of their contribution to the program, while the businesses focused on their storefronts. Towns also work to rehabilitate apartments located above the storefronts in order to bring renters to the downtown district. This addition adds local shoppers, and it also helps bring money back to the building owners in the form of rent. Down the road, the community may wish to add sculptures strategically placed around town. Dowagiac has 23 attractive sculptures in their downtown area, all contracted for and donated by individuals in the community. But of course, this would be a much lower priority in the early years of the development program. In summary, these town assets encompass ideas to enhance the downtown business district in order to encourage visitors to the town and renewed retail activity. These ideas were as follows. First, restore the architectural character of existing buildings by repairing facades and painting them using an historical color palette. Convert non-historically accurate facades back to their original character. Change Main Street to a one-way street with angled parking to increase street traffic and parking spaces on the street. Add signage at the Bridge and Main Street intersection, directing people to the historic Emlenton Business District. Add trees and plantings throughout the business district. Add old-time street lights along Main Street and River Avenue. Utilize street bricks to creatively accent sidewalks and special areas in town. Bury electrical wires under Main Street. Rehabilitate apartments above the storefronts to attract renters. And add sculptures around town. This is like a phase one or foundation of economic development strategy, getting the town ready for the next step of community assets to exploit. Now, let's explore other community assets. Another very important asset is the community's strong sense of community as exemplified by community events and activities such as Emlenton Days. Nothing will be more important to community development efforts than the cohesiveness of the town and its existing leadership and community organizations. Look for ways to leverage and blend these resources into your vision. Some of these include city government, the Emlenton Fire Company, the Civic Club, the Pumping Jack Museum, just to name a few. There are a number of other community and area assets that can be exploited in overall community development plan. These include the Gaslight Campground for RV travelers, the Barnard House Bed and Breakfast, and the Emlenton Mill Hostel for overnight travelers. Another existing asset is the town's canoe, bicycle, and Segway rental businesses. These businesses currently capitalize on the river and trails around Emlenton and are an asset that will become extremely important as tourism to the town grows. Mineral Springs and Hughes Park provide lovely spaces for group picnics and gatherings. The renovated athletic field is available for sporting events and other sporting activities. And the Emlenton swimming pool lies ready to be put back into use as business justifies. The Pumping Jack Museum and the Emlenton History Trail tells the story of the town, its history and contributions to the region and the country, which would be of interest to tourists to the area. The Reminiscence Banquet Hall on the outskirts of town offers a lovely facility for weddings, banquets, reunions, and other group events that bring visitors to the community. And finally, the Crawford School Auditorium is a valuable community asset for special events such as plays, musicals, and traveling guest artists that could be brought to the community. Besides the core business district, the town has existing assets that will contribute to what the community can offer visitors in the future. These include the organizational strength of the existing community organizations, the RV campground and bed and breakfast and hostel for overnight stays, the existing canoe, Segway, and bicycle rentals supporting the river and bike trail, Mineral Springs and Hughes Park recreation area for picnics and gatherings, the Pumping Jack Museum and the Emlenton History Trail for telling the story of the town, the Reminiscence Banquet Hall for weddings and other events, and the Crawford Memorial School Auditorium for local entertainment venues such as community theater or semi-professional performances. Now let's look at some other area assets that can be exploited. Let's take a look at some of the assets Emlenton offers as a great place to visit, shop, and enjoy the natural resources of the area. First and foremost is the aesthetic and practical use of the mighty Allegheny River. In the past, communities were built next to rivers and streams to provide transportation, power for their factories, and water for their homes and businesses. Today, cities and towns value rivers as a resource of recreation and beauty, and Emlenton is blessed with a great partner via the Allegheny River, an eddy sandwiched between two riffles. Very few communities within a 30-mile radius of Emlenton share such a rich natural resource. The river gorge at Emlenton is breathtaking in its depth and beauty. It's a gem of a resource for the community to build upon. The aesthetic value of the mighty Allegheny River could be exploited by the addition of a modern motel with a fine restaurant located on the scenic site. Perhaps as the community advances on their economic development plan, an investor may be interested in just such a business opportunity. The recreational use of the river could be leveraged for boating, fishing, kayaking, canoeing, and floating. As future tourist traffic might support, what about offering a paddle wheel boat ride on the river? Want to really dream big? How about building a zip line across the Allegheny River? A venue of this magnitude would attract tourists and adventurers from all over the country. Sometimes we take granted for nature's assets that surround us. When I drive east across the country from our home in Michigan to my son's home in New Jersey, I cannot wait until we pass through the Indiana and Ohio and reach east of Cleveland, where the interstate starts its upward slope toward the Allegheny Plateau and the wonderful rolling hills of western Pennsylvania. You can only fully appreciate these hills if you have lived in the flatlands of the Midwest. Business attractions like horseback riding, snowmobiling, tobogganing, cross-country skiing, and sledding would be great options to capitalize on the hills and valleys around the town. The hills and valleys around Emlenton are perfect for mountain biking, which attracts enthusiasts from a wide area. Trails might be used for mountain biking in the summer, cross-country skiing, or snowmobiling in the winter. How about another big idea? Sponsor the Emlenton Bicycle Road Rally, where thousands of people would descend on Emlenton to participate. The events could be 20, 30, 40, or 50-mile long. These sports enthusiasts love the challenge of cycling over scenic, steep hills and valleys. These events are really big. My son participates in them in Manhattan, where thousands of cyclists participate. He said he would drive 340 miles to Emlenton to participate in one. Even though I listed Interstate 80 as an obstacle to the community in the past, it can also be an asset today. First, there are two exits off the interstate, with one of them specifically marked for Emlenton. But more importantly, Interstate 80 and 79 bring the dense population centers of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Erie within hours of town. The large bridge over the Allegheny River offers me a way to describe the town where I grew up. I tell people I grew up under the big I-80 bridge across the Allegheny River about 40 miles from the Ohio border. Many people remember this landmark. The right billboard message, seen from the interstate in both directions, would create an extraordinary amount of positive awareness from a tourism standpoint. It could promote the historic town of Emlenton and its central location for hiking, biking, camping, fishing, and all types of outdoor sporting activities. Tens of thousands of cars pass over the town on I-80 every week. Emlenton's awareness level throughout the four-state area would grow exponentially. Ever heard of Wall Drug? Anyone who has traveled west on Interstate 90 through South Dakota is aware of a drugstore located out in the middle of nowhere called Wall Drug. This is because of a highway sign campaign that simply said, Wall Drug 500 miles, Wall Drug 450 miles, Wall Drug 400 miles. Finally, you arrived at a sign that says, "Wall Drug, exit here." And you are so curious that you stop. And what do you find? Just a drugstore with lots of stuff. And yes, you end up buying stuff. The billboard ad campaign worked. I remember the anticipation I felt as a young kid in the 1950s when we finally arrived there just because of the roadside campaign. Of course, one of the biggest, and I mean biggest assets to the town, is the Samuel Justus Bike and Hiking Trail from Emlenton to Oil City. This is another gem of a resource with wide range of appeal. As you know, the trail is 32 miles of flat, smooth asphalt surface, bordered by the Allegheny River and the wooded Allegheny Valley. The 8-foot wide paved surface is built on the old railroad grade, parallel to a dirt access road suitable for horseback riding and hiking. There are true incredible railroad tunnels on the trail. The plan is for the trail to extend south clear to Pittsburgh, some 60 miles. A community visitor center, parking lot, and retail store could be built at the trailhead and act as a marshaling area for all sorts of outdoor activities, including biking, hiking, horseback riding, canoeing, and Segway. This would be a focused attraction for outdoor enthusiasts from Pittsburgh to Erie, from Cleveland to State College. Of course, Emlenton doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is centrally located in western Pennsylvania and has been included in the National Wild and Scenic River System. This inclusion leverages Emlenton's awareness in the region. Currently, events sponsored by the town attract people from surrounding communities. In addition, if Emlenton leveraged promotional activities with destination attractions in the region, additional visitors could be drawn to the town. These destination attractions include Foxburg, Grove City College and the huge discount shopping mall near Grove City, Clarion University students and parents traveling to and from school, Cook Forest State Park, Titusville, and the entire oil region. And now, with the right infrastructure in place, the town would be in a position to stimulate entrepreneurial activities in the town. And here are some business types other communities like Emlenton have attracted to their town. Perhaps an exceptional aspiring chef or restaurateur opens a destination restaurant that attracts customers from a wide area. Perhaps an Amish restaurateur takes on this opportunity. Out in the country, about 5 miles from the closest small town, is an Amish restaurant that attracts customers from South Bend, Indiana, and Kalamazoo, Michigan, with large cities that are over 30 miles away. It started with just a small restaurant. Next, they added a small bakery, and recently they expanded to a meat and specialty food market, with much of the food carrying their brand name products. This type of success is possible in Emlenton. Here are some investment ideas. How about a trailhead visitors and sporting store for hikers, boaters, fishermen, and building enthusiasts? Or a small live theater that does semi-professional productions. A small town called Three Oaks, Michigan, near us, has this very thing. Or an ice cream and candy store. Of course, this is only justified after tourism is built. Another option would be opening a small 100-seat or less old-time movie theater. This also exists in a little town called Three Oaks, Michigan. Encouraging new entrepreneur startup business might include a brew pub or a distillery. In Three Oaks, Michigan, they have a distillery that private labels their own liquors that they market within a 4-state area. Antique shops, and I believe Emlenton already has one. Many more could be added. Or recruiting artists and craftsmen to build small storefronts on Water Street, like a blacksmith or a potter, a metal sculptor. The craftsmen could be renters above the existing storefronts. How about a good old-time hot dog shop? I have the recipe for the Butler Hot Dog Shop Coney Island hot dog that I would gladly donate to somebody that was starting up a hot dog shop in Emlenton. Perhaps the old Quaker State refinery property could be converted to a regional attraction, such as an oil and gas hall of fame with early oil industry exhibits. Or better yet, convert the area to a parking, camping, and marshalling area for hikers, cyclists, snowmobilers, with a trailhead store to supply their sporting needs. Encourage motorcycle clubs to stop over in Emlenton and have a place for them to camp for the night. How about creating a special event area next to the Emlenton Cemetery for themed events like Oilman and Drillers Festival? Add water and a bathroom facility and you're there. Or horseback riding ranch with trails throughout the countryside. Or how about a toboggan run or a sledding hill? A snowmobile trail over miles of countryside. In Edwardsburg, the town I live in, we have over 60 miles of continuous snowmobile trails through the countryside. Or cross-country skiing trails. I would say I have only scratched the surface of what creative people in this town could do. But in summary, we have talked about the existing businesses, Emlenton's historic architectural downtown business district, other existing community assets, the Allegheny River, the Allegheny Mountains, hills and streams, the Samuel Justus bicycle and hiking trail, Interstate 80 for creating awareness and positioning for the town, other regional attractions, and encouraging entrepreneurial business startups. The last question is, how does the town proceed from here, assuming a creative direction is desired? First, continue to do the good community events Emlenton is known for. Second, form a downtown development organization with defined leadership. Create a vision, a long-term collective vision of what could be for the community. Create a community positioning or town theme and consistently promote it. Break the vision down to a first step and focus on that. And when completed, define a second step and complete that. And then progress on reacting as opportunities arise. Raise seed money locally to assist building owners repair their facades. Investigate with your county, state, and federal government representative as to what financial opportunities exist for small communities. Talk with your local bank president to see how they can help finance building renovation. Build a relationship with an area architect, artist, painter, and building repair people. Negotiate a flat rate for building evaluation with an estimated cost for facade repair or restoration. Investigate establishing a TIFA, a tax incremental finance authority. Investigate and apply for community grants. And finally, work with the local newspaper to communicate progress to the community as it occurs. In summary, I've presented a lot of information in this talk that identifies problems that exist and assets I believe the community possesses that, if leveraged, could result in a renewed future for the town. Of course, the future is the town's to ordain. However, I can see the potential to turn the Emlenton area into a destination location for outdoor enthusiasts, where the downtown area is revitalized into a quaint business district with shops and stores that support the needs not just of the residents themselves, but also to outdoor enthusiasts to the town, where the upper floors of the business buildings again offer apartment rentals for local people, artists, and artisans, where the people come to bike, hike, cross-country ski, snowmobile, and horseback ride along the beautiful Allegheny River and the hills and valleys of the area, where people travel from Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Erie, and other communities from miles around to enjoy canoeing, kayaking, boating, fishing in the Allegheny River. Where bikers travel from Pittsburgh to Oil City on the Railroad Bike Trail and stop over in Emlenton to pitch their tents, enjoy the amenities of the town, and resupply for the remainder of their journey. Where thousands of cyclists descend on the town to participate in the famous Emlenton Road Rally. Where the town offers camping sites, hotel, bed and breakfast, and hostel rooms for overnight accommodations. And where destination restaurants, brew pubs, ice cream shops, and sportsmen's trailhead store supplies meet the needs of the visiting tourists. Yes, I even see the possibility of a world-class zip line crossing the Allegheny River that draws crowds from hundreds of miles away. However, this is just one man's mental venture of what could happen over the next decade in a town so rich in history and tradition. I hope you'll forgive me if I have gone too far with my vision, and I thank you sincerely for allowing me to share my thoughts through this presentation. Very respectfully, Rick Sheffer.